Serious, Redditors who have a stepfather mother younger than them. What's your story? My dad is 71. 6 months ago he left my mom for a 25-year-old. I'm 33 and my sister is 28. His new girlfriend is 6 months pregnant. They're not married because my parents' divorce hasn't gone through yet. But I guess once that happens I'll have a stepmom who is 8 years younger than me and a newborn half-sister. This will be my dad's third marriage. The first one ended because he slept with his brother's wife. So the story here is, my dad is trashy. Edit. Wow. Well, this certainly got more attention than I expected. Thanks for the internet points y'all. Also, yes, half-sister, not stepsister. I wasn't finished with my coffee yet when I posted. Edit 2. Again. Yes, half-sister not stepsister. The ancestorologists of Reddit have really showed up in force. I'm editing this mistake out. Maybe that will slow the tide of half-sister not stepsister comments. Edit 3. I'm female. So theoretically I'd be my own grandma. This redneck family tree actually closed full circle. Okay, so my dad loves controlling people. He was really abusive to me growing up. I'm sure if you need any stories, just dig through my history. He used to always go on about wanting a Chinese wife because she'd be really grateful and meek enough towards him that he wouldn't get any arguments or independent thought from her, unlike an American English wife. Well, not long after declaring the above, he met and married a 21-year-old Chinese woman. He's late 50s. I was 23 at the time. The way he treats her in public is revolting. He is so condescending and talks real slow and firm like someone would to a toddler. He tells her off and calls her names. It was so sad to see. I don't know for sure, but she may have left him, as when I was last in contact with him, he never brought her with him or spoke about her. The story is simply that my father is an irresponsible creep. It was just the two of us when I was growing up, but he made it clear he was resentful having to take care of me. He's in his 60s. I'm 34. My older half-sister turns 40 in a few days. My youngest half-brother just turned 2. I'm sure I have siblings I don't even know about. His current wife is maybe 30 and by far the oldest woman he's ever been with. He cheated on his last wife with her. His last wife was 19 when they met. I was 17. But that was better than his previous girlfriend before that, who was a few months younger than me, and I was 17. I always make sure that his baby mamas know that I'll always be there for them and their kids when he leaves, because he is going to leave. It's interesting watching how surprised they are when he does. I found out my dad died because he stroked out while in a motel with someone younger than me. This was, to our knowledge, the third time he cheated in a long-term relationship, and he was already married to someone 20 years younger than him. None of this really affected me because I knew he was a piece of it for years, so I guess it's not really a great answer to this thread, but it's still kind of amazing. I'm a guy, 23. My dad is 64, was 40 when I was born, and last year he married a woman who was 22 at the time. My parents weren't really together, never got married, and split soon after I was born. My mom's black, and my dad's an Iranian who came to the US in the 70s as a student and never left. Revolution in Iran meant he was stuck with no visa. My dad left school, was pretty transient, moved up and down the East Coast, and eventually settled in New Jersey, where I'm from. I didn't keep much contact with my dad, but I started talking to him again a few years ago. He didn't have much companionship, so eventually he went back to Iran, met a woman who already had a kid and was divorced, looking to make a better life for herself. So my dad married her, and she and her son came over just before the Trump ban. My dad talks pretty freely about his feelings toward his wife, and hers toward him. He'll say things like, "Obviously she doesn't love me, she just used me to come to the US." Both my dad's wife and her son have had a hard time learning English. The wife had a mental breakdown last year and checked herself into a psych ward, into which I'd also checked myself a year prior for depression and attempting suicide. My dad's pretty poor and lives in a mostly ghetto neighborhood with not much to do. It sure seems like my stepmother is isolated, and until she learns English she's pretty much at my dad's house all day long. Another fun fact, my mom's mom is younger than my dad. My mom's mom had my mom at 17. when my dad was already 19. Dad is a serial monogamer. He has been married 4 times. This last wife is 5 years younger than me. She is 25. My dad is 52. She gave birth to my brother last year, which resulted in an interesting conversation with my kids. Me showing my 6 and 5 years olds a picture of their new uncle. Me: "Look guys, this is your new uncle, isn't he cute?" Kids: "That's not an uncle, that's a baby." Caps are accurate. SMH. She is young as hell and acts like it, and my dad is hella gross for dating a girl younger than his daughter. But it's his life. It makes for weird genealogy talks with others, but that's all. My dad married a woman 7 years younger than I am. They have a 35 plus age difference. Their daughter is now 2 years older than my son. They live in the country where I was born and I've only met her 2x. But my sister and I support them financially. He abandoned us when my sister and I were 10 and 12. And had another set of children with another woman then. I am very wistful when I see dads being good to their daughters. My mom is amazing though. And my son and I are super close. So all things considered, I'm still better off than most. My dad is married to a 25-year-old waitress. I am 26. When I was 18/19, me and my family used to go to the place she waited at, and every time I would silently pray we were going to seated in her section. Because I had a huge crush. My dad would always be a dad and drop some dad jokes, waitress style. I always thought she was laughing at these jokes to be polite. Turns out she thought they were genuinely funny. They got together 5 years ago. He still goes to the same place to eat, and she's still his waitress. The jokes are worse now though. Edit. Yes, my mom was a part of the family that went. My parents' marriage was already falling to pieces. They split soon after I turned 18, but tried a few times to work things out. My mother's husband is 2 years younger than my husband. My husband is 7 years older than me, so my mom's guy isn't younger than me, but it still is a weird dynamic. My mom jokes that I always dated older and she always dated younger, so it was bound to happen. We actually made a pact when I was 20 that I wouldn't date anyone older than her, and she promised she wouldn't date anyone younger than me. We both had some close calls but held true to the pact. The only really weird thing is watching our husbands interact. They are serious best friends whenever there is a family get together. If we can't find one, we look for the other. There isn't a cookout or birthday party where they decide to give each other piggyback rides or cake eating contests or something silly and fun. My favorite thing is when my husband yells, "You aren't my real dad. You can't tell me what to do." Double quote. They are goofballs. My dad, my mom and my now stepmom all worked at Pizza Hut together. My stepmom also lived across the street from us. I was 8. My mom and dad split up. My dad slept with my stepmom, knocked her up, got back with my mom 6 months later and knocked her up, then went back to my stepmom. This is why I have a half sister who is 6 months older than my full brother. So my Bill is 30 and his wife is 55. She has 7 children from 4 previous marriages relationships. 3 of her 7 are over 30 years old. The look on their faces when they came my bill at the wedding was something to behold. Her youngest is 10 and lives with his father. The other 6 are 18 plus and live on their own. At least 2 are also married. After my mom and her 2 sisters had graduated from high school, my grandparents got divorced. A few years later, my grandpa married one of my aunt's friends from high school. According to my mom, it was a real big deal that had a lot of people talking and pissed off. My aunts all hated her instantly, and one of them even did the "I'll put sugar in the gas tank" thing. Oddly enough as it may seem, my grandpa is still married to her, and my step-grandma is a pretty cool person. Everyone seems to get along now. Unfortunately, my grandpa has dementia pretty bad right now, and my step-grandma is pretty diligent about caring for him, so I have a lot of respect for her. My grandpa doesn't even know who she is anymore. It's been an interesting story, I suppose. Words. I'm 27 and my stepmom is 26. My dad, 54, brought her over from the Philippines and they've been married for almost 2 years now. It was definitely different at first. though I didn't have much room to talk considering I've known a couple older gentlemen in a very biblical sense. I was most worried about my dad getting hurt or taken advantage of. They just didn't seem to have much in common other than they both like to watch 90 Day Fiancé. Now that the newness has worn off, I can see my dad was very lonely and needed companionship. My auntie Mama is a lovely young woman who grew up on a poor island with about 15 families on it. She laughs when people call it paradise because she says it's very hot and there is nothing to do. Electricity there is only from 5 PM to 10 PM. So I see their marriage as more of an arrangement to better both their situations. They may not be madly in love, but I can tell they care for each other. And now that it's been about 2 years, I can say with confidence I get along better with her than my old man. My dad married someone who is not much older than me. She is younger than my brother. When they got married, she was 30. My brother was 32. My parents were married for 30 years. But no one was happier than my brother and I when they got divorced. I didn't care about the age difference. My dad seemed to be happy. I didn't really like her as a person. She's selfish, demanding, and generally just a whiner. One time she was visiting my husband, son, and she locked herself in the guest room because she thought I hated her for trying to replace my mom. My mom's still around. I just don't like you. I tried harder to be nice to her after that, even if I didn't want to. These days, they are separated, about to be divorced. My dad is in his 70s now. She's in her late 40s. My step-grandmother is a 50-year-old biker chick, covered in tattoos, 7 years younger than my mother. My grandmother committed suicide in 2009, leaving my socially inept and cantankerous grandfather behind. He moved to a retirement community, where he's gotten in some trouble for shooting a fawn from his front porch with a shotgun. A few years after my grandmother's death, he started proposing marriage to his housekeeper. He didn't want her to live with him, just wanted to pass on his pension from working in the police department. Only a spouse could inherit it, not children. It took her many years, but eventually she accepted. No wedding, they're not really together, but now my step-grandmother's younger than my mother. I had a stepmom 6 months older than me when I was 25-26. When coordinating my little brother's HS graduation party, she acted like she could boss me around. Shut that it down right quick. I have a friend who is barely 20 and dating a 46-year-old man. He has 2 sons, aged 20 and 23. They didn't take the news of him dating a girl younger than them well, and have apparently cut off complete contact with him. Now things have gotten serious. His ex-wife thinks it's hilarious. They all think he's having a midlife crisis and think she's a gold digger. I kinda have to agree with them. Does it count if I knew someone who purposely dated younger girls? I was 19 when I met him and he looked about mid-30s. Being young and what I thought adventurous was, we went on a date and that's when I learned how bad I ducked up. He told me he wanted to have children. That's why we was dating girls in their early 20s. Understandable. Some people really do want to have children, but he already had children right at the beginning of the date. He was having a moment because his 14-year-old daughter had a boyfriend. This is when I found out we was in his 40s, not in his 30s, and it was so awesome to meet his fellow friends his age who kept giving me strange looks, for good reason. I stupidly continued the date with him and we went for a drive, while dodging his groping hands and telling him no to all his sexual requests. I learned he had a son who is in college. Cool. He tells me that he thinks his son is older than me. I ask him how old his son is. His son is 21. I told him that I am younger than his son. His response? That's so hot. I noped out as fast as I could and never spoke to him again, but I still knew he was trying to find other girls to date through word of mouth. So creepy. Those people genuinely get off at the age difference because they have this idea they groom you into their little plaything, but most young girls don't know better. He isn't the first guy I met who is really into that too, and that's the saddest part. For about a year when I was 18 and my sister was 20, my 50-year-old uncle started dating a 19-year-old. I will never forget when she was driving me and my cousins to a concert and she treated all of us, including me, like children. I at one point had to say, I've dated women older than you. Please stop referring to me as a child. My brother-in-law's stepdad is only a couple of years older than him. His stepdad had a daughter with his mom who is now around 5 I think. So my sister has a half sister-in-law who she's 20 plus years older than. Edit. Wrong relation. When I was 14 my dad married a 21-year-old. She was fun, beautiful, caring, and I was blessed to have her. Please remember people are people and when it works it works. Since just about everyone else is going with the whole not younger but I'm gonna start with my story is somewhat related. My folks have been together for 31 years now. However it's I who date someone their age. I got no siblings. The guy I date has no kids, nieces or nephews. His brother is married and older than my folks. So there's a bit of an age difference between us. My folks were probably ready for it so they didn't care. One day I told them I was gay. Another day I told them I'm into older guys. Then one day I was dating an older guy. Before that I lived with some old guy and his son. Friend from college and I wanted to move out of the house. So I moved in with him. So it was probably good practice for my folks. I'm in a significantly healthier relationship than that friendship ever was. We're good together. My parents like him. We live together now. We go out all over the place on the weekends. It's just been awesome. Not much to say unless anyone wants to ask. My mother is 58 and the youngest of 3. Her father is 87. His girlfriend who lives with him is 27. So not only is she younger than his kids, she's younger than all of his grandkids. It's truly disgusting. Apparently, she's not after his money, which is substantial, but he saved her from a life of crime and meth. Okay, whatever you say. I used to work with a guy, Chris, whose best friend, David, was also his stepdad. Basically, when they were in school, David used to go to Chris' house a lot and hang out, and somewhere along the line, David started going over just to see Chris' mum. Eventually, they started actually seeing each other, and eventually got married. I think David was like a year or 2 younger than Chris. What's strange to me is that Chris never moved out. He just kept living there with his best friend and mum. I never noticed any signs that they found it weird at all. They still came to work together and hung out like friends. It was a weird setup. How about similar age? Dad married a woman 30 years younger than him. She was barely 2 years older than my big sister. He had younger girlfriends ever since his divorce. So I never really thought it out of the ordinary. She had met him about 7 years previously when he visited her country. When they met up again, she was recently widowed from another American. When Dad married her, immigration was all over them. Dad was suspiciously mute about the entire situation. I suspect she married the other guy to get citizen status and then he up and died on her, leaving her status precarious. It took $1,000 in lawyer fees to get them to leave them alone. He really did not think the marriage would last. It has been 25 years. He is 86 while she is 55. He is frail, with asthma, diabetes, COPD and a heart condition. She is resentful, catty and works all the time. You know that saying you made your bed, now lay in it? That is how I feel. Kind of related. My younger sister had a concert date set up with a guy but he called and said last second that he set up other plans. It's a small town and his dad just happened to be at the same bar as my sister and she invited his dad instead. It's been almost 2 years and they have a baby together now. So he flaked on her, and she made him her stepson. It's probably way too late for this to get seen, but I might as well post this since it's something I want to talk about. My dad is gay, but he was in the closet for most of his life. My mother divorced him when I was 2 so I have no memory of them being together, and figured out why when I was in high school. It wasn't hard since my dad doesn't know how to clear his search history. I'm gay too. But we went for years without addressing his sexuality. He finally came out to me when I was in my mid-20s and told me he was seeing someone. His boyfriend was about 5 years older than me, about 20 years younger than my dad. It was really heartbreaking because the guy clearly had issues. But I think my dad felt like he couldn't do any better. My dad has a very stable life and this guy was a train wreck. The guy had been arrested for distributing crystal meth and having unregistered assault weapons. For a long time, I was the only one that knew my dad was gay, let alone that he had a partner, and my father had a heart attack. His partner took it upon himself to call my sister and tell her. So my sister got a call like, "Hi, I'm Matt. I'm your dad's boyfriend. Your dad's gay. By the way, oh, and he also had a heart attack." They were together for 3 years until Matt overdosed on black market steroids. My dad swore Matt was done with drugs until he started cleaning out his stuff after he passed. And I know this is a terrible thing to say, but I'm glad that he's dead. I hope that my father can find someone who truly deserves him. My grandmother remarried when I was 12. She was 60 something at the time. Her new husband was 18. Many video games were played. I'm the stepmom in this scenario. My husband is 15 years older than me and has a previous marriage. In said previous marriage, he adopted the ex-wife's 2 children, who are now adults. One is 23, the other is 26. I'm 33. I entered this marriage in agreement of being child-free for life. I don't want kids, but love everyone else's. Luckily, my hubby is also part of the club and wants no additional kiddos. My relationship with the stepkids is more along the lines of friends. They have a wonderful relationship with their dad, my husband, and I'm not as close as they are. Understandably, however, I think they do come to me as with issues and help like any other parent-child relationship. I am the person you go to when you have financial problems and need food, household stuff like TP. I have all of that in my stock room. I help whenever they ask. My requirement is to simply ask, and I will help however I can. They never married, so not technically my stepmom, but my dad dated a woman 6 months older than me. I also have several older brothers, all older than her. My parents divorced about 20 years ago. I didn't keep much contact with my dad outside of birthday calls for most of those years. My brothers did. I find out through a brother my dad, late 60s, is dating a 23-24 year old. Now, she doesn't speak English. He doesn't speak Spanish. They communicated through Google Translate. So, whatever. I jaff. He's happy. Cool. Well, he died just over a year ago. My siblings and I are hosting the wakes. She comes to the second one, dressed in nitty jeans and a big puffy jacket. Doesn't come up to any of us. Just sits there. Again, whatever. I've never met you. My problem is the next day, just before we leave to drive to the cemetery, the priest is about to give the eulogy and asks that we all sit before any of his kids can even move. She's sitting in the very front row with her brother or some relative. Sorry, but duck you. You should have waited to see if any of his kids, grandkids or siblings wanted to sit there before you. It's not like they dated for 10 years or were engaged. It was maybe a year-long relationship. She also made a super weird Facebook page for him that he was clearly entirely uninvolved in. Some spelling errors. I'm 34 and my 53-year-old mom married a guy she met in my younger sister's friend group who is around 4 years younger than me. Roughly 20-year age gap. My sister was really pissed about it for a while, but I never really cared. It's my mom's 4th marriage and she has had a very long struggle with mental health issues and I just want her to be happy. The guy is really nerdy and they had a video game themed wedding at the local Elks Lodge. Now they live in an RV with 2 cats on just his income because she has been unable to get a job since 2009. I worry about my mom, but for now it seems to be working okay. In high school my brother had a crush on this girl, so we'd go to her house and hang out with her, a little brother and her single mom. I ended up having a crush on her mom, so much so it was even a joke that we were the mom and dad of the family. Fast forward almost 10 years later, me and the mom are married and I'm a stepdad to 2 kids who are no more than 5 years younger than me. I know a family that adopted a girl, aged in between the 2 biological boys. When the adopted girl turned 18ish, the father ended up together with the adopted girl. I have never got a chance to talk to the older biological boy. When this all happened, high school was over and everyone moved on. Always wondered exactly how he felt about the whole situation. I'm 33. I have 3 younger brothers, 31, 25, and 22. My dad is 61, and he's been seeing a 23-year-old girl for 8 or 9 months now. She lives with him and everything. We live in a smallish town, close to 9,000 people. For a while it was the talk of the town. I hated it. Still do, but it's gotten better. I lost a lot of respect for my dad because of it, and it's ducked with the family just because it's so freaking awkward. My brothers and I catch a lot of flack for it. Hey, how's it feel having a stepmom younger than you? Stuff like that. It sucks because I've always liked doing stuff with my dad, like hiking, hunting, fishing, etc. But now it's so weird to be around. Anyways, TLDR, dad 61, dating a 23-year-old.